What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith, and welcome to The Nerdy Narrative. The Nerdy Narrative is a channel I use to share with all of you about all of the things that I'm reading, and hopefully I can share something you haven't read before, and it sounds like something you might be interested in picking up. Today is Friday. That means it's time for me to check in with you about my week in books. What I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to read next. Let's start with what all I finished. I did finish Sharp Ends, the collection of short stories from the First Law World by Joe Abercrombie. I knocked out the last couple of stories as soon as I finished filming last week's check-in, and those last two stories just really made the collection for me. For those of you who have read up through Red Country, there is a character that is followed around by a story writer, a journalist, so to speak, and one of the stories here was written by him, and I just would take a whole collection of just those. So I did end up really enjoying this. It took me a few stories to see where Abercrombie was going with it, and I thought I wasn't really going to enjoy it, so I did end up having a really good time with this one. My next completed read is Mike Shell's Aching God, which is the first book in his Iconoclast trilogy. This book was such a fast read. This one is definitely on the darker side of fantasy. It's got that quest trope that I really enjoy. I do feel like the author took a little bit too much time getting to the meat of the quest. We spent a whole lot of time getting ready and getting there, and then we only had about 100 pages of action. I'm very excited to see where book 2 is going to take us. I feel that now that we've got all the build up out of the way, now we can really focus on the good stuff. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading Sin Eater next month. And then the final book that I finished is The Unwelcome by Jacob Stephen Moore. I had this feeling that this was going to be a binge-worthy book for me, and I wanted to make sure I could read it in a time frame where I would just have a few hours to just sit and read uninterrupted. And I'm glad I did that. I really had a fun time with this book. It's a horror story, but it was so unique. What he did with the premise was so different that I just found myself just smiling and enjoying myself. Yes, I had fun with a horror book. Maybe I'm getting desensitized to horror and I'm looking at other things now. I have no idea, but I had a fantastic time reading it, and it was just the right time of year to get into it. Fall is just the perfect time to read this type of book where you have a group of college kids. They're going on a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the woods, and we have a body snatcher after them. Things are going to get sideways. So all of that is familiar to you, but the characteristics and the manner with which things happen is where this story is unique, it's different. I loved it. I just had so much fun seeing how this author took this trope and made it interesting. This one read like a movie. It felt like I was reading a movie script and I saw the characters playing it out in my mind. I just had the best time with this book. I'm definitely going to be doing a dedicated review for it, so keep your eyes on the channel for that. That takes care of everything I read. What I'm still reading. I'm still working on Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. This is my Russian classic that I'm working on. This is a read-along that is hosted by myself, the Codex Cantina, and Chrissy Lewis from the channel Chrissy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. I will have both of their channels linked down below, but I am currently sitting at 300 pages in. This is my morning read. The first thing I pick up was my cup of coffee in the morning, and I read about 20 pages a day of this one. Leo Tolstoy is such a great author. Two translators that got a hold of this did an amazing job. They are my favorite. I'll put their names on the screen because I cannot pronounce them. I've already picked up their translation of Dostoevsky's The Idiot, which is the next read that the Literary Discord will be hosting. I just have the best time with this book. Leo Tolstoy is an excellent writer. The majority of what I've read this week has been about farming. And you're probably thinking, that sounds boring. No, it's actually been very calming and therapeutic and enjoyable. I can actually see what is happening, and the character that is the farmer that owns the farm, just how it makes him feel as well. he just feels so satisfied. He gets out there and works with the peasants, and just the feeling of accomplishment that the exercise gives him. I just love it. I just absolutely love it. The main character, Anna Karenina, I don't care for her at all. I have not really, it's not that I don't enjoy reading about her, I just don't like her. If you just took Anna's story out of here and just gave me Levin's story, I'd be a much happier girl. And then, as I talked about last week, I started The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This one, I am about 170 pages in, and I am really enjoying it. It's still early on. There's still a lot of buildup going on. I'm still meeting characters. There's been a lot of interesting things going on. There's a lot of different people involved that have different characteristics that I'm really enjoying. This one feels like it is another sort of quest-based. My party, my fellowship, so to speak, is still forming. It has the potential of being really, really great, a favorite in fact. It feels like one of those late 80s, early 90s fantasies that could have come out alongside The Wheel of Time, The Sword of Truth, The Sword of Shannara. It could have come out with those, but he did it better. He doesn't have those very long-winded descriptions. Terry Brooks, Robert Jordan, I am looking at you. But it has all of those really fun characteristics that feel like it took inspiration from The Lord of the Rings, but just done a little bit better, in my humble and subjective opinion. Now that brings me to my TBR wrecker. I do not normally break my TBR. I might add to it if time allows, but I don't usually go to kicking books off for another book. But here's what happened. So, I read The Mask of Mirrors with a group of friends earlier this year when it came out. This book, this one right here. I loved it. We had the best time talking about it. We did a live show. I'll link it in the cards for you. We just loved it. We've never stopped talking about this book. Like, that channel has just never died on my Discord. And book 2 is going to be released in December 7th, The Liar's Knot. Well, a bunch of us had been religiously checking NetGalley to see if the ARC was going to be available. It finally was. And of course, we all requested it. And we have just been waiting and refreshing for the weeks following. Then it happened. Thursday night, I got the email that I got approved for the ARC. I go in my Discord, I'm not reading anything that's happening. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, I got approved for the ARC. Kate had already said that she got approved, and then we were just all hitting it. Like, all of us got approved. So we had originally planned to reread The Mask of Mirrors in November, and then of course be ready to read The Liar's Knot when it came out in December. We were all very excited. We were trying to figure out like what we wanted to do. Do we want to go immediately into Liar's Knot and skip the reread, or leave the reread in November? And what we finally decided to do is we started rereading Mask of Mirrors on Monday, and then we're going to go ahead and read the ARC for The Liar's Knot. So that meant I had to kick a couple of books off the TBR, and I just went ahead and I kicked House of Leaves. I saw that Leanna from Leanna's Library was reading it, and she's like, man, this book just feels like it's getting longer and longer. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I've heard so many random things about that book. So I totally just punted House of Leaves off the TBR. I'm gonna move The Free Bastards by Jonathan French out a month, and that way I will have time for my Mask of Mirrors reread and The Liar's Knot this month. And this one, it looks like a chunker, but again, it just has really kind of large font. I'm already a third of the way through. This book reads so fast. It's so good. I am so glad that I reread it before reading The Liar's Knot, because there are so many little nuances I had forgotten about. Stuff about the magic system and some smaller characters that I feel are going to play a larger role in upcoming books. So I am very excited for this one. I've been enjoying it just as much as the first time, maybe even a little more, because it just means more this time. Even though I know what's going to happen, I'm just really enjoying experiencing it again. I had decided last week that I was going to just have 2 physical books going at a time so that I could get through them a little bit faster rather than starting 5 physical books at a time and taking 2 weeks to read the majority of them. Well, I tried, and I just couldn't do it. And because I had a Russian classic and an epic fantasy going, I decided I wanted to mix in a different genre, and I decided to go ahead and start reading Sweet Pea by C.J. Skews. This book, I read 100 pages of it the first time I picked it up. I have been laughing my tail off. This book is not for everybody. Let me just go ahead and say that up front. If you do not share the same sense of humor as the main character of this book, you will not enjoy it. And how to explain that a little bit further. You spend a lot of time in the main character's head, so there are no holds barred on her thoughts. If she doesn't like somebody, she thinks some pretty terrible things about him. In fact, each chapter is a day of the week. And how each chapter starts is her kill list. People who have pissed her off that day that she wants to kill. Like this particular day I just turned to, a lady was walking her 2 dogs and she didn't have them on a leash and it attacked the main character's dog. So that pissed her off. And the main character's name is Rhiannon. On a different day, her list had Jonah Hill on it. And then the next item on the list was like all of the people who cast Jonah Hill in movies. So it's reading her diary, which it feels like her therapy is to just list out the people who hacked her off that day. But again, I would say get this one from your library or see if you can read a sample of it on your Kindle to see if you jive with the sense of humor. Because if you do not like the sense of humor of this character, you'll hate this book. It is not for everybody. I obviously share the sense of humor. I have been laughing almost non-stop through this book. The author's word choices just crack me up. Here's a couple of examples and then I'll move on. So the evening dragged on like a corpse tied to a donkey. I got so tickled because of course I imagined that. I don't normally get drawn towards cheerful people. The urge to hurt them just becomes too strong. Y'all, I was hollering. I just got so tickled at this book. So I bet I'll have this one done in the next couple of days. So that takes care of everything that I'm still reading. As soon as I finish Sweet Pea, I will be going right into J.P. Harker's new series, Gawain. This is an Arthurian tale where we're following Sir Arthur's knights and the eventual formation of Camelot. I am very excited to finally get into this one and see what I think. So I will be starting this one as soon as I finish one of the books I've got going now, probably Sweet Pea. I feel like I'm just gonna binge Sweet Pea tonight. I was finally able to get hold of volume 3 of Uzumaki from my library. I have the first 2 volumes, but there were a couple of people that were in line for the 3rd one. I finally got it. It's on its way. It's in transit from whichever part of the county it was in. Hopefully that will be here in the next couple of days so I can knock this little series out in the coming days and can talk to you next week about it. Talking about horror, I got some exciting news that I saw on Twitter yesterday. So you guys know I love Stephen Graham Jones. He is one of my favorite authors. I discovered him this year. I've been working through all of his works. Well, he recently released My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is a love story to all of the great slashers that we grew up on. So a month or so ago, the news had already broken that he was going to be writing a sequel. Yesterday on Twitter, Stephen Graham Jones tweeted, "The name of the sequel is Don't Fear the Reaper and we should have it by July of 2022. I am so excited, y'all. There was much rejoicing going on over in this little house. But guys, that is all I have for you this week. That will take care of all the books that I read, what I'm still working on, and what I plan to read next. I'd love to hear about what you've been working on this week. We've only got one more week of October left. Next weekend is Halloween. What have you got planned for Halloween? Are you dressing up, going anywhere fun? Chris and I are going to be heading out to Halloween Horror Nights over at Universal Studios. I told my patrons I was going to try and get them some footage up on Patreon of that, and they might not see anything, but they'll probably hear Chris screaming like a little girl because he is so funny. I am a huge chicken. Haunted houses really scare the stuff out of me, but Chris screams so loud that the scare actors target him. So I can usually sneak by and then they just go straight for him. Or if he's in front of me, they go ahead and get him, so I kind of know where they're going. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this week. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me and the channel. I hope you have had a really great week. I hope you had a lot of enjoyable reading time. I hope this weekend allows you plenty of time for reading as well. Again, thank you for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.